Why would you cheat on him? That guy has shown you nothing but love.
It was a mistake.
A mistake that lasted for months?
What would you do if the man you were about to marry was the same man your sister once loved? For Amara, this was not just a question, it was a reality. Amara and her elder sister Nneka had always been close. At least, that was what everyone thought. They lived together in a beautiful apartment in the heart of Lagos, surrounded by the noise of traffic, the bright lights of tall buildings, expensive restaurants, and the endless rush of city life. Nneka was 30 years old, confident, beautiful, and ambitious. She worked in a successful real estate company and seemed to have everything under control. Amara, on the other hand, was quieter. She was the kind of person who thought deeply before making decisions. She believed in love, she believed in loyalty, and most importantly, she believed that no man should ever be allowed to come between two sisters. But life has a strange way of testing the things we believe in. And Amara was about to learn that sometimes the person you love can be connected to the person you promised never to hurt. It all started 3 years earlier. Nneka had been dating a man named Daniel. Daniel was different from the men Nneka had dated before. He was calm, hardworking, respectful, and he loved her deeply. Everyone could see it, even Amara. Whenever Daniel came to their apartment, he never failed to bring something for both sisters. Sometimes it was food. Sometimes it was a little gift for Nneka. And sometimes he would simply sit with them in the living room and listen to the sisters talk and laugh. Amara liked him, not romantically. At least, that is what she told herself. To Amara, Daniel was simply a sister's boyfriend, nothing more. But then, one evening, everything changed. Nneka came home late, very late. Amara was sitting in the living room, watching television, when she heard the sound of the front door opening. She turned around. Nneka. Her sister walked inside. Something was wrong. Amara could see it immediately. Nneka dropped her handbag on the sofa and stood there silently. "What is wrong?" Amara asked. Nneka did not answer. Did something happen? Still nothing. Then Nneka finally looked at her sister, and the words that came out of her mouth would change everything. "Daniel knows." Amara frowned. "Knows what?" Nneka's eyes filled with tears. "Everything." Amara asked again, "What are you talking about?" Nneka covered her face with both hands, and then she began to cry. That night, Amara discovered the truth. Nneka had cheated on Daniel, not once, not by accident. She had been seeing another man behind Daniel's back for months. And somehow, Daniel had found out. He was devastated, but he did not scream. He did not fight. He simply ended the relationship. Amara could still remember the night Nneka told her everything. "Please, don't tell Mom." Nneka had begged. Amara had stared at her sisters in disbelief. "You cheated on him?" "I made a mistake. A mistake that lasted for months." Nneka started crying again. "I said I'm sorry." Amara did not know what to say. She was disappointed in her sister, but she was still her sister, so she kept the secret. Daniel disappeared from their lives. He stopped calling, stopped visiting, and eventually, Nneka moved on. At least, that is what it looked like. Years passed. 3 years now. 3 years without Daniel. 3 years without anyone mentioning his name. Until one fateful Tuesday afternoon, Amara walked into a restaurant in the heart of Lagos. She had gone there to meet a client. She was sitting alone, looking through some documents, when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Amara. She froze. Slowly then, she turned around. And here he was, Daniel. For a few seconds, Amara couldn't speak. He looked different, more confident, more successful. But his eyes were the same. Daniel. He smiled. It's been a long time. Amara stood up. Wow, I didn't know you were in Lagos. I've been here for almost a year now. She nodded slowly. There was an awkward silence between them. After all, this was not just an old friend. This was the same man her sister once betrayed. The man her sister had once loved. The man who had disappeared from their lives after their relationship ended. Daniel eventually asked her to sit down. They began talking. At first, it was just small talk. Work, life, the city. But somehow, the conversation became easier. They laughed. They talked about things that had happened over the years. And before Amara realized it, 2 hours had passed. When she finally stood up to leave, Daniel looked at her. Can I have your number? Amara hesitated for some seconds. She knew she shouldn't, but there was nothing wrong with giving an old family friend her number. At least, that is what she told herself. So she gave it to him. That was the beginning. At first, Daniel only sent her occasional messages like, have you eaten? How was your day? Did you get home safely? Amara did not think much of it until the messages became phone calls. And the phone calls became late night conversations. Slowly, without warning, Daniel became a part of her everyday life. He knew when she was happy. He knew when something was bothering her. He knew how to make her laugh. When she was having a terrible day, and Amara began to notice something that frightened her. She was falling in love with him. She tried to fight it. She reminded herself of who he was. She reminded herself of who he used to date. Her sister. Every time Daniel called, she felt guilty. Every time they met, she felt like she was doing something wrong. But Daniel did not know what was happening inside her. One evening, they were sitting in Daniel's car after dinner. The city light reflected through the windows. Amara was unusually quiet. Daniel looked at her. What is wrong? She said nothing. Amara, I've known you long enough to know when you are lying. She smiled weakly. It's nothing. Daniel stared at her for a moment. Then he said something that made her heart stop. I think I'm falling in love with you. Amara looked at him. She couldn't breathe. For a moment, the entire city seemed to disappear. There was only Daniel and the terrible truth sitting between them. She loved him too. But there was one problem. A problem that had been waiting for her for the very beginning. her sister, Nneka. Amara knew that if she accepted Daniel's love, she might lose her sister forever. But if she walked away from Daniel, she might lose the man she had come to believe was the love of her life. That night, Amara went home and couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling until morning. And for the first time in her life, she asked herself a question she never thought she would have asked. Can I marry the man my sister once loved? She had no idea that before she could find an answer, her sister was going to discover the truth. And when Nneka finally found out who Amara was in love with, she would do something that would turn the entire family against each other. If you were in Amara's shoe, what would you do?